Hello, you're listening to Sending the Experts with Georgina Durrant. This podcast is all about teaching and supporting children and young people with special educational needs and disabilities, SEND. My name is Georgina Durrant. I'm the host of this podcast brought to you by Twinkle SEND. As a former teacher in Senko myself, I wanted to create a platform to share some of the amazing things that my guests are doing to support learners with SEND. So whether you're listening on your commute, tuning in whilst walking your dog, or curled up on the sofa with a nice cup of coffee, thank you so much for joining us. In this episode, I am so excited to be joined by Dr Gina Gómez de la Cuesta. Gina is a clinical psychologist and founded Play Included, which was formerly Bricks for Autism, in 2018. Gina studied Lego-based therapy for a PhD at Cambridge University Autism Research Centre and is co-author of the Lego-based therapy manual. Gina has also published several academic papers on Lego-based therapy, including for the iSocialise randomised control trial. Play Included's brick-by-brick programme is an evidence-based, strengths-focused approach that supports children to collaborate, communicate, problem-solve and share fun experiences all through the collaborative Lego play, and is the only therapy using Lego play to be endorsed by the Lego Foundation, so it's the real deal. And I'm so excited because if anyone knows me, they know I'm obsessed with play and Lego in particular, and I've got my little Lego dog with me because I had to put some sort of Lego prop here with me today. Hi Gina.
Oh, hi Georgina, thanks for having me on. I've also got my little Lego sunflower and a little horsey person.
Oh, I love that Lego Friends one. Nice.
There's so much Lego in my office.
Oh, it's so lovely to meet you. Could you tell us a little, I've gone a little bit into your background, but could you tell us a little bit more about your background, in particular, why you're so passionate about play-based learning and in particular Lego? Like, why is this your thing?
Do you know what? I think it's kind of just because it's fun. And I was just really lucky to be in the right place at the right time for my PhD. So as you said, I did my PhD, gosh, that was back in 2004 in the Autism Research Centre. And I was really interested in supporting autistic children and kind of fun ways of doing that. I was also a teacher before that and did a psychology degree, and so I just met Dr Dan Legoff, who kind of conceptualized Lego therapy, and just happened to be in the right place at the right time where my supervisor Simon Baron Cohen and Dan were talking and saying, oh, let's do some research on this. So I was just so lucky, and I think why I'm so passionate about it is because I've just seen what joy it brings to the kids, and it's just such a lovely way of giving social experiences and positive ways to develop skills that really works, and it's not kind of stigmatizing. It's very much from a child's level, so that's why I guess I'm so passionate about it.
I love that, and I love that you were just there at the right time. I think that's fantastic that you just so happened to be in his company, and then it all just went from there. That's wonderful. I love when things like that happen.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So if we start with the basics for people who are listening, what is Lego therapy and what is the aim of it?
So gosh, that's a really good question, because I think now we've kind of changing the terminology, but Lego therapy, as it was when I was doing my PhD, is about bringing young people together who have an interest in Lego building and want to build Lego with other children, and who might have autism or another reason why they might be looking for extra support for social, emotional communication opportunities and development. So if you build a Lego model, you might build it by yourself, you might build it at home with your family. In Brick Club, children come and build it with other children. So it's about getting young people to work together to build a model, maybe in different roles, maybe with different jobs, taking it in turns, maybe building a set following instructions in those different roles, or maybe designing and creating your own freestyle creation out of your own imagination, or doing a stop action movie. There's so many activities you could do, but the core element is that young people are building with other young people, so they can chat together, they can team build, they can problem solve as a team, and they can make, I guess, friendships and relationships through that process.
Oh, it's lovely. And what's the history behind it then? So you mentioned a little bit about Daniel Legoff, is it, the founder of it? So you mentioned a little bit about who founded the approach, and I think I've read one of his books actually quite a while ago about Lego and Lego play. But what's the whole history about it? How did he come up with this idea then?
So it was actually yesterday, or the day before yesterday, we hosted a webinar with lovely Dr. Dan, and he was through that story. So if if anyone's interested in that, we will be hopefully making that available to our Play Included members. But Dr. Dan is a neuropsychologist, and he, I guess, first came up with this when he was in Hawaii, but he now lives in Florida, and he was working with neurodivergent kids and had a playroom with all sorts of toys in it, sandbox, pretend play, dress up, bricks, trains, and Lego bricks. And he just noticed that the kids with autism, the autistic children, tended to just be drawn towards the Lego bricks in his playroom. And then some parents were chatting and saying, oh, my child likes Lego too. So he kind of then started thinking, oh, well, let's get these two kids to play together doing something with Lego. And then it sort of evolved quite organically with other kids and other parents saying, oh, can my kid do that too? Can they join in? And then the children really developed their own kind of way of collaborating and building in different roles, with the engineer who kind of describes where the pieces should go, the supplier who finds the right bricks, and the builder who puts the pieces together. And he was explaining that because the kids were working together as a team, the supplier was finding the bricks for the engineer quite quickly. The engineer was describing where they go. That the children realised they could build the Lego models quite fast, a little bit faster than usual, because they were working together, and that then they could build something a bit bigger and better, and they really enjoyed it. So I guess that's the history of it. And then Dan published his research looking at the outcomes for the young people in his brick clubs, and found some improvements. I think those days we were still thinking quite medically about autism and looking at kind of social skills and behaviour, and I think we've shifted our thinking on that, which I'm sure we'll talk about, but which is really important. But I think he showed that the children were making real progress and actually really enjoying it. So that was what I guess triggered my research when I read that paper, and my supervisor had read that paper and talked to Dan about his methods. And we came, I went over to New Jersey where Dan was living, and learnt, he was so generous. I stayed with his family, and he showed me his brick club room, and I learnt how to kind of do the methodology with him, and then came back to Cambridge and ran the first groups in the UK for my PhD. And I name is Dan. I found that the children were so motivated to come. They all said this is like 10 out of 10. I really want to come to this club. And it was the first group situation that they'd not felt stressed about coming to or felt kind of on edge about. So it was really, really wonderful experience.
Oh, and I must say that sounds like the most fun PhD ever.
It was
really, really does.
My friend, who's my PhD, colleague doing a science PhD, I got her to help me sort out all the Lego that we were donated for the PhD study, and I think we were delivered 65 kilograms of Lego bricks.
Oh wow!
Put them all by colour. It took us hours, but yeah, that was a good. It was a good PhD.
I think we touched on it a little bit, because you're saying in Dr. Dan's sort of playroom, the kids were sort of gravitating towards Lego. But does it have to be Lego? And I imagine you're a bit biased, and you're probably going to say yes, but just can it be any sort of a brick?
Yes and no, right? So I think what brick clubs and our brick by brick program is doing is using the kind of I guess the appeal of really amazing Lego sets to and an interest that young people have, and they may be interested in Lego building in their home life, and so you do that in the brick club. If children have got other interests, then it might be nice to just create a club around that. But I think for me, the Lego bricks and the Lego sets are just so well designed. There's so many different interests that are kind of appealed to in the different types of Lego, and the kind of instructions and the way that the Lego sets are kind of set up just really lend themselves so easily to collaborating. And but also, with Lego bricks, there is so much scope for creativity. And I think sometimes we underestimate autistic children's creativity, and actually in the freestyle play, children can make the most amazing things, and their imaginations can kind of go wild, and it's often a real strength for autistic children, other children too, but it can be a real strength that that children can then feel a sense of pride about is their ability to build Lego models. So I think there is something a bit magical about Lego. Yeah.
I was just thinking when I was asking you that, like, does it have to be Lego? Imagining being in a shop with like my kids and saying, "Oh, does it have to be a Lego set?" And they'd be like, "Yes, it does."
It just
Do you
does.
know what I mean? There is something, there is that appeal about Lego over bricks, and I do get it. And I think you're right, it is what you can create from it. It's the quality of it, isn't it? And it's all the different builds, the whole range of stuff that they bring out is incredible. And like, I know I showed this one before, and people who are listening on the podcast won't be able to see this. So come over to YouTube and have a look. But like some of the Lego builds they're creating now are absolutely phenomenal, aren't they? Like this,
it's literally amazing. And also, you know, there's the kind of interface between the digital and the brick now. They've got these kind of you know, interactive kind of online stuff with the Lego building, and like the scope and the robotics and coding. You know, there's just such like I don't know if you've read about Scratch and Mitch Rezick's kind of sort of Scratch, the coding things for children that has a low floor, a high ceiling and wide walls. So he says that Scratch has that, and I believe Lego building has that, or Brick by Brick program has that. It has a low floor, so entry level. It's very easy for children to get started Lego building. There's Duplo, you can build really simple models. There's a high ceiling, so no matter how kind of technically skilled you're at Lego building, actually can do anything. There's all the, you know, as I said, the robotics, the coding, the technical Lego pieces. And it's got very wide walls, which means the kind of, no matter what you're interested in or what you like, you can find something and build it out of Lego bricks, probably. You know, so there's a huge range of kind of, there's a huge space to work in, really, which is why this program is so flexible, I think. And that's another kind of benefit of the Lego versus something else, I think.
Yeah, we went to the Lego house, and I mentioned it just before the recording. We went to the Lego house as a family over the summer, and to see, like you say, the breadth of what you can do with Lego, to see what they've created in the Lego house in Denmark is absolutely amazing. They, you know, from like a huge dinosaur to, I think they've got pumpkins. They had pumpkins in October as well when we went by, and just like everything. You can make anything out of Lego. It's incredible.
It is incredible. Yeah, it's so creative. It's fantastic. Yeah.
So Lego therapy, I'll stop banging on about Lego too much and go back to Lego therapy. So Lego therapy, so you said it benefits autistic children. What studies are there to back this up? And recently on Twitter, we had somebody ask about if it was useful for autistic girls. It's not just for autistic boys, is it? It can be for everybody.
No, I think, you know, Lego is for anybody, like grown-ups, young children, older children, teenagers, girls, boys, anything. So there's no specific research looking at you know, groups for girls, for autistic girls. The research so far, there's been, I guess, Dan Legoff's original study. I think that was published in 2004, and there's been a few. He's done a long-term follow-up showing sort of positive long-term outcomes for children in terms of their social development. My PhD did a sort of little tiny comparison study with another social skills program, and that showed sort of benefits for the Lego group. And then, you know, there's been various small scale studies since then, and some review articles showing that this is promising for autistic children's social development. And then recently we've had the big randomized control trial, the iSocialize trial, which was looking at using this in schools in 240 schools, and randomly allocating children to receiving this methodology versus just education as usual. And I think that the results showed a small but positive benefit, and that was between 6 to 12 weeks of just coming weekly, so not very long, and that it was very acceptable to the parents and the teachers and anecdotally the children, and that it was cost effective as well. So sort of quite positive findings. But what I would like to see moving forward in research that I think is missed so far, and what we're trying to work on a bit at Play Included, is looking at children's real experiences of it, and asking the children about their outcomes and what's important to them, moving away from thinking, oh, you know, we've got to fix children's social skills, moving away from that medical model, and really coming from a more neurodiversity affirming perspective, and actually looking at brick clubs from that point of view as a place where children can be themselves, use their strengths, find other people who share an interest, and just develop a sense of belonging. So it's not about kind of teaching social skills. It should be more about giving opportunities for socializing and supporting children with skills that are meaningful to them, to help them kind of thrive and feel like they belong and have a place that they can, shine.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I'm so pleased you said that, because that was one of my questions, was this, there's a big growing focus now, which is brilliant, on sort of neurodiversity affirming practices and making sure that we're not trying to change children to be more neurotypical. We're not trying to, force social skills that are more neurotypical on autistic children, etc. And yeah, my fear was that what if this is a bit like that, but clearly it's not. And Lego therapy is neuroaffirming, and it's a choice for children if they're wanting support. I suppose if they're wanting ways to help socialise with children, if they're wanting support with that, they can opt into it. If they're wanting to do it in their own way as well, they can do.
I think that's really important, Georgina, and I think there's what I've found, unfortunately, since I guess being the first person to do Lego therapy in the UK, is actually there's a lot of Chinese whispers effects going on about what Lego therapy is, and it never ever has been trying to force children to make eye contact. I've read that happening in some. Gosh. It's or forcing children to say a particular word so they get the brick. Like, it's never been that's kind of behavioural approach that some people have misinterpreted. That is what Lego therapy is, and it never was, and it never should be. And I think not only are lots of people doing lots of different kinds of training, downloading lots of different kinds of materials about Lego therapy, it just makes it a bit confusing sometimes about what the aim is. And the aim has always been for children to interact quite naturally together and play together. Yes, build in different roles and have different jobs and take it in turns, but in quite a kind of child-led way. And I think sometimes what I see, and certainly in the I Socialise trial, when I was observing some teachers run the groups, some teachers really got that concept and were great and playful and doing it fine, and other teachers were very sort of over involved, and it became very boring and clunky, and it was more adult led than child led. So I think there's misinformation out there about what Lego therapy is, and getting the right training is really important.
I was going to ask, because that was another thing I was thinking about, like training. Surely it's from a naive point of view, surely it's just like kids playing with Lego. What's the need for the training? But now I get it, because if you're saying, it's almost like there's an idea, and then with everything, people go off and do their own thing with it. And the Chinese whispers, like you say, it's got, sometimes the method gets missed and people do their own version of it, which might not be neuroaffirming, whereas you're saying like the foundations of it and your version of it is really neuroaffirming. And that sort of message sometimes could be lost if people aren't doing the training and are doing their own version. Is that true?
Yeah, completely, definitely true. And I think that's why I wanted to set up Play Included as a place where, like, here is the source of, like, this is what it is, this is the original, and we've worked with autistic consultants to make sure that our training really embeds the neurodiversity affirming practice. And we've partnered with Lego Foundation, who really kind of embedded learning through play in our training, and it's really about what the adult does and how you set up and how you facilitate the sessions that's really important. So I guess our training is quite thorough, but that's for a reason, because actually there are subtleties to it. It's not just about, I think the main misconception is that Lego therapy is one child is the engineer and has the instructions and holds them, no one else can see the picture. One child has the bricks and has to listen really carefully to what the engineer has to say and find the piece according to how the engineer describes it, and then the builder puts it together, and that's it. That is, and so the problems with that misunderstanding is that actually everyone should be able to see the pictures. You should be using the visual strengths of the children to help them know where to put the pieces. The children should be helping each other out if they get stuck. You're not stuck rigidly to a role. The children should be in charge of who's doing what job when they swap, they decide that. And also, you can work in pairs. You can work one-to-one with an adult. You could have a whole class doing it. It's not just about 3 children working together. You could have, my favourite is about 6 to 9, and some kids working in a pair, some kids doing freestyle, some kids doing set building, depending on where they're at and what they're doing. And your job as the adult is not to kind of supervise every description of a Lego brick. I think that's where people go a little bit wrong, is that they think it's about describing the shape, the size, and the position of the Lego brick. That would be more speech and language therapy use of Lego.
Yeah.
And that's fine if that's what you're doing, but that's not Lego therapy.
And that almost feels a little bit like you're sucking the fun out of it. It's like, I'm not being harsh to people doing it that way. Well, I am being harsh to people doing it that way, but it is, isn't it? You can imagine as a child, you're like, yay, we're doing Lego. You sit down, you're like, you have got to hold this piece of paper and read this. Nobody else can look at it. Everybody be quiet. And you'd be thinking, this isn't Lego. This isn't fun.
It's not so fun. No. And I think that, it's got to be fun.
Yeah.
Otherwise, that's not the point. The point is that kids can come and play together, socialise together. And yes, you can build a Lego set with 3 children with different roles, of course. But they should be like figuring that out and like showing, I need that bit. How do you say that? Oh, it's like this. And they could get bits in advance and prep things to make it quicker for the builder. And there's a much more fluid kind of approach to it. And I think that's what gets missed if you just read a little bit of information on the internet or print off even like the research papers. You only have a couple of words to describe like a whole methodology. So I think that's where people have gone wrong potentially, is that that perhaps you miss the nuance of it, and you miss how broad it can be as well. Like if you're just doing set building, that's just a tiny part of Lego therapy.
So your Lego therapy is called the Brick by Brick program. How's that? I think we've touched on it a little bit, but how is that different to other Lego therapy out there, apart from being, I presume you think better and the original one, but like how else?
Totally. So I guess one thing that is important to mention is that the term Lego therapy actually breaches the Lego Group's trademark. It's not a term that is really allowable. So we are obviously partnered with Lego Foundation. So we're the only organisation that obviously is really making sure we're abiding by all the regulations for the use of the Lego trademark. And that's really important for people to know. I think it's fine if you're kind of just running brick clubs in schools and not charging people, but that's kind of one factor. So but we also wanted to kind of differentiate our program. We don't want to call it therapy anymore. We wanted to call it a program because then it's less stigmatizing. It's hopefully more neurodiversity affirming and welcoming. It's a program, it's a club, it's a place where kids can come and be and have fun and develop skills. We've really, really thought carefully about playful facilitation, and that this program actually isn't necessarily just for autistic children. We think it all children benefit from playful experiences, from playful social experiences. And I think particularly post-COVID, there's been more and more children have been isolated and finding social things a little bit difficult. So I mean, there's not research in that area yet, but I mean, it's a very kind of, it's got a lot of kind of validity of saying actually come and play and be together with others and develop some skills and have some social opportunities that are meaningful to you as a child, that are important for all children. So I think we're sort of trying to broaden out, like obviously there's a lot about autism in our training and that's our core area of specialism, but we want to think a bit wider.
I was just going to say about the pandemic, I completely agree. I keep saying about the pandemic and how, there was a lot of focus on sort of academics and children missed out on reading and writing, children missed out on maths, but there needed to be more focus, in my opinion, on sort of play, and the fact that children had missed out on those skills of playing with other children as much and playful experiences together. And I think that going forward, and it's too early, isn't it, like you say, to have the research on that, but it does seem to be that going forward that's going to be an area that children have missed, and we need to fill that gap.
Yeah, completely. I think you're right, Georgina, and we wrote some nice little whole class Lego building activities that are free to download from our website just for kids post-COVID, just after the pandemic, building friendships resources. So we think that Lego play has got a lot of potential there for children to kind of work together and play together and build different models and chat and socialise. So I think, I mean, the Brick by Brick program is Lego therapy with a different name. We're just not allowed to call it that because that's not legally allowable. But it's more, I think we've put a lot of thought since the early days when I did my PhD. We've put a lot of thought and development into new ways of making it neurodiversity affirming, and really embedding the adult's role as a playful facilitator of those kind of brick clubs. So I think those are the two key kind of differences. Is that we're focusing a lot, because I've noticed, I think this is why I've noticed people misinterpret things and get a lot more on like what you do as an adult and how you'd be playfully facilitating a session, and taking some of the Lego Foundation's wonderful research on learning through play and bringing that into our training. So and the neurodiversity affirming stuff is the core kind of new side, brick by brick.
So the teachers listening to this podcast who are thinking, oh yes, that's on my to-do list, I was thinking of doing Lego sort of therapy or a Lego group at school, perhaps using the brick by brick program because they've heard you talking about it. What do they need to do now? Because I like to have sort of aims of what they can do the next day. So if they want to go into school tomorrow and talk to their head and be like, right, this is what we need to be doing, I've listened to the podcast, I'm really keen, I've been thinking about it for a while, but now I've just remembered and thought, yeah, let's do this. What should they do? How can they start the ball rolling with setting up like a brick by brick program group at school?
Yeah, so I would head to our website at playincluded.com and have a look at our, what we describe about the brick by brick program, maybe share that with the head teacher. And there is different levels of training. Our level 1 training is e-learning. It's really fun, engaging e-learning. Everyone really enjoys it. It's not boring. Click this. Well, it is click this, click that, but it's got videos. It's quite engaging. It's not your everyday boring e-learning. So that's level 1. And once you've done level 1, you can set up a brick club if you want to, but we recommend people do level 2, which is our face-to-face 1-day course, because that's where we really have experiential learning for the adults running the clubs. We feel like it's been during the pandemic, we're like, we've got to try and do it on webinars, and we've got to try and do like remote learning on brick by brick. But actually, to do the best job, I think the adults need to feel and do the activities for themselves.
Oh, brilliant. So you actually sit them down and actually get them doing the brick by brick program themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
Fabulous.
Yeah, and that really then helps them think about it from the child's point of view and then run the brick club in the best way. And we've got like lots of ongoing support, like drop-ins and Q&A sessions and online kind of resources, printouts, and little video guides just to help people as much as we can. So that would be where to go. Is kind of book on level 1, and hopefully try and get to level 2 if you can persuade.
That sounds really fun. You can imagine these conversations with your head being like, so I want to go and do this whole day of like Lego.
Yeah,
it does sound like a really fun training.
Yeah, sometimes people dismiss it as, oh, you're just playing, and really there's never just playing. I'm sure you agree. Like, play is really, like, in and of itself a brilliant thing to do, and you also develop loads of skills through play. But it is really, really helpful for children. We've got the evidence that shows this is going to help them. So it's not just playing with Lego. It's important to kind of get that message across sometimes.
Yeah. So once they've done the level 1 or the level 2, how do they go about choosing like which kids to go in the group? Like what are the logistics of that next step? I presume a lot of that's covered in the training.
Yeah, it is actually, and I think it really depends on the setting and the setup. So in a school, you might have kind of identified some children that might want a brick club, but I think, as we said at the start, it should be opt-in. So you shouldn't be forcing children to do brick clubs or like therapy. The children should be sort of invited and saying, oh, we've got this brick club running, would you like to come? We think you'd really like it. We think you're really good at Lego. We think you'd like to come. So then it's, I guess, about getting the parents involved to say if that's okay, and finding timetabling of it all. That's always, I think that's the worst bit, is like when in the school day should it happen, and then inviting other young people along too, and thinking what size of group you want. You can do it with the whole class, or you could could just have 3 children, or you could. I always recommend 6 or so, 6 to 8 to 9 children. Because there's more social opportunities then, there's more chance of socializing, but it also depends on the children's needs. So you might need a smaller group. You have to think about how many adults you'll need facilitating. So it's always good to have 2 trained people per club if you can, assuming there's a decent number of children. And I guess getting the room set up, getting the Lego bricks set up, getting the children kind of, I suppose, getting a sort of baseline assessment of how they're doing to kind of then follow them up over time.
Yeah,
so there's a lot to think about, but it is all covered in our training. It's about sort of practical training, but it's there's a lot to kind of think about. There's a lot to plan.
Yeah. Have you got any sort of top tips for teachers when they're setting it up then? Any sort of golden ideas for when they're wanting to set up a brick by brick program in their school?
Yeah, I mean, get donations of Lego bricks from other, like from parents at home. Often people have Legos sitting about that they're not using anymore in the loft. So get some donations. You need sets with instructions, and they can be expensive. So if you can get donations, that's helpful. And I would also get the children involved in what kind of Lego they want to make and what they want to build, so that actually then the children have more agency and choice in their club. So it should be all about what the kids are interested in, what you think they'd like, what they think they'd like, so that they are part of setting up the brick club themselves as well. It's not just kind of
it'd be fun to get them involved in trying to source the Lego as well, wouldn't it? Like, you know, that would be brilliant. I'm getting excited. I'd want to do this myself, but wouldn't that be really fun? And it'd be like a project they've got to draw and see if they can manage to, how much Lego we can get from parents and how we can find it and source it. And can you get the instructions online as well now for some sets?
Yeah, some of the sets you can get the instructions online.
Like working that out and seeing what bricks they got and how they could get the sets from online. Sorry, you go ahead. I was getting excited.
No, you're right. That's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah, so you can get the instructions online and then try and source the bricks. There's different apps as well. I can't remember the exact website names, but there's different websites that help you with that as well. We've got them linked off our training, but I can't remember the exact name of it. My colleague Abby, who's in all the drop-ins, she knows all the website names. She's wonderful. She's our community engagement lead, and she knows all the best places to get Lego bricks and the best ways to kind of get instructions off the internet. But a lot of them now, which is great for kids who maybe are visually impaired or need an iPad, a lot of the newer Lego sets, they have the instructions on the iPad as well. So then you can rotate the instructions in different directions and view it from different angles, and zoom in bigger. So that's really
that's brilliant. Much more accessible, and also great if you lose the instructions as well. Totally. That you've got like a copy on there,
all like ripped and tatty, and so it makes a difference.
Oh, fantastic. So links then, we will put all the links in the show notes underneath this. When people are listening, often I never know when I'm listening to a podcast where the show notes are and what someone's talking about when they say show notes. So if you're listening now, if you click on wherever you're listening to it, if you scroll down on the actual thing, it will show you, and on YouTube underneath here, there's the links that you can click on. So we'll put links to the Brick by Brick program. Is there any other links you want to include on there? So links to find you, perhaps?
A little YouTube channel as well, where you can see some videos of us. We can put the YouTube channel link on, and then just maybe a link to the Lego Foundation, so that people can see that our program is kind of the official one, like that's endorsed by Lego Foundation. We're partners with them, and because there are, as I said, there's lots of information out there about Lego therapy, and some of it is great and some of it is less great, so it's hard to then know which is the true source. So hopefully the Lego Foundation stuff will also give people a bit of inspiration about learning through play as well.
Oh, fabulous. Oh, thank you so much. You've been such a good guest, and it's been so wonderful. And I told my husband that I was spending the morning getting to chat to somebody about Lego. He was like, what is this job? I'm so lucky. Thank you so much. It's been absolutely wonderful to meet you, and sounds fantastic what you're doing. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for inviting me on, Georgina. I really enjoyed talking to you about it.
Well, that was really fun. Wasn't she a brilliant guest? I feel very, very lucky to have been chatting about Lego this morning. I hope that was useful. I'll put the links that she mentioned in the show notes below, as well as some links to resources from Twinkle as well. And thanks again for listening to Send In The Experts with me, Georgina Durrant. Please make sure you're subscribing to the podcast channel or on YouTube as well, and tell people you're listening. Spread the word. Thanks. See you next time.